Hey there to you and yours. Happy soon-to-be Week 6. Welcome to the NFL Power Ranking Show here on the NFL Pass channel. Also, a podcast. Download it wherever you can. My name is Andrew Siciliano. That right there is Eric Edholm. We collectively are presented to you by Energizer, and we are thrilled. If you were to get up to your screen right now, or maybe if you're watching on like your tablet, your phone, or whatever, take out your other device, Eric, and scan that QR code and see through, officially now the quarter poll, your power ranking genius. How difficult was it for you this week?
It was pretty difficult, right? I mean, I wanted to move the 49ers up. There's nowhere else to put them, though, right? They're at the top spot. But Dallas obviously coming in with a difficult performance there. Other teams struggled. I mean, let's get to the Patriots eventually. But, man, just top to bottom, there were a lot of changes this week.
The Patriots will be at the end of the show. I actually can't believe you don't have them at the very end of the show.
I know.
But we'll get to that a little bit later. You teased it right there. The 49ers are the number one team. Here are the new rankings right now available on NFL.com. San Francisco stays at 1, followed by Philly. Kansas City is down from 2. The Eagles and Chiefs swap. Dolphins, the Lions into the top 5, followed by the Bills, who lose Matt Milano in the process in London. The Jaguars, the team that beat the Bills, are somehow a top 7 team. Yikes. I don't see it. And the Dallas Cowboys fall by 3 after getting stomped upon by the 49ers in the game of the week. Let's just call the 49ers the team of the week. The team of the week presented by Truist. The road to the Super Bowl, Eric, very clearly now, in the NFC at least. Don't get mad at me, Eagles fans. I know Week 13 still looms on the calendar. But in my eyes, it runs through Santa Clara. They are the best team. I saw the Eagles in person. I think San Francisco's better.
I do too, Andrew. To this point, the evidence suggests they're the most complete football team in the NFL right now. Offense, defense, special teams, it's all clicking. And, you know, even though it was a close game in the third quarter against the Cowboys, they very clearly had the edge throughout and then put their foot down on the Cowboys' neck in the third and fourth quarters there. So incredible offensive performance, and what a performance on defense. Only allowed 8 first downs, a couple big plays, but for the most part, a tremendous statement game from San Francisco. As look, Dallas had stood toe-to-toe with some pretty good teams, shown off a good defense, but San Francisco said, no, we're just a class above you right now.
Yeah, and what bothers me here too, and I know we'll unpack the Cowboys a little bit more, from a Dallas perspective, is that they talked this thing up like it was their Super Bowl. And I remember Richard Sherman on the Thursday night, the TNF Amazon postgame show, after the Bears stunned the Commanders. Sherman, the former 49er, said, hey, like this doesn't mean as much to the Niners as it means to the Cowboys. Almost like an NBA mid-season cross-conference thing, right? Like LeBron and the Cavaliers are going to L.A. It meant more for them than it did for the Lakers. And if the Lakers lost, they just kind of shrugged their shoulders. Well, this, when it didn't mean, allegedly, as much for the 49ers, was a one-sided game that was over early. And they are clearly the best team in the NFL. Eagles fans now, time to get angry. Week 13, San Francisco goes to Philadelphia, hopefully with a healthy Brock Purdy this time. I was at SoFi, where the Rams and the Eagles traded punches throughout the first half, and I mean that figuratively. 13-play drive followed by a 12-play drive, and then really the end of the second quarter, Eric, speaks volumes to how confident the Eagles are. They went brotherly shove, tush-push with no time left on the clock, got it, and then dominated the second half.
Yeah, I think one of the hallmarks of this team is they have not played their best football yet, at least not, when you compare it game-to-game consistency-wise to what they did a year ago. But they're still 5-0, and that aggressiveness that you just pointed to for me is one of the big reasons why I moved them up, and I still feel like even not playing their best, the fact that they can take chances, that Nick Sirianni has faith in his players to go for it. I mean, what were they on their own 25 with about 30-something seconds left? They decided to go down the field. 32, okay, I was close. And finish it in style, right, with the play of the year, I guess, the controversial play of the year with the brotherly shove. But they do it so well, right? That is the secret weapon they have. They also have, I'd love to see their red zone performance get better, but when you can continually drive and drain teams down, what they do offensively, it's a tough team to beat, even if, like we said earlier, the 49ers just seem more complete. They're the only two 5-0 teams in football. They're both pretty darn good.
Yeah, the only two undefeated teams in football are the teams ranked 1 and 2 in the new power rankings. Can't really disagree. The Niners 1 and the Eagles number 2. And yes, even though it was a fairly even game in the first half, the Philadelphia defense taking advantage at times of a banged-up offensive line. Notably, there the final Hassan Reddick sack by the rookie Warren McClendon there from Georgia, forced in at right tackle. Their defense put the clamps on in the second half, and they shut the Rams down. Just period, shut them down. And Philadelphia is now the number 2 team here as they are moving up 2 from where they were a week ago. The Lions are a top 5 team. They're behind the Chiefs and the Dolphins, but the Detroit Lions are a top 5 team. You put them in the top 5, not because they beat some world-class opponent. I'm going to guess, Eric, you put them there because they did it without Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they did it without Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jameson Williams is barely in the conversation, yet they're still putting up 40.
Yeah, they have time to get J-Mo going. Obviously, he had a little bit of a slow, tough debut, but that was probably expected given how much time he's missed. You're right. You could lose 2 of your key offensive cogs there, and Amon-Ra and Jahmyr Gibbs has done some nice things as a rookie and still be fine. Sam Laporta steps up. Obviously, Josh Reynolds has been a big part of what they've done. Jared Goff still steady play, the offensive line taking over games. Now, look, this is a Carolina team that is got a rookie quarterback who's struggling. Frank Reich is under fire. They have a million problems. They're at the other end of the power rankings this week. But even still, I thought it was a really impressive, clean performance. You could easily see this as a little bit of a trap game or a letdown game, or they could come out slowly. That was not the case. I think Dan Campbell's just really done a nice job for all the jokes about kneecap biting and all that stuff. He's kept this team focused, eyes on the prize. They didn't let the Seattle loss affect them. They moved on, and they're just taking care of business each and every week now.
Yeah, and this is a team that Lions fans, Cynthia Freeland wearing, a lion thing, whatever that was, a couple of weeks ago as well, can legitimately start buying playoff tickets for. I know that's ridiculous. Wait. This is a Lions team that isn't a flash in the pan. This is a legitimate Lions team that you need to ask right now, how many games can they win in the postseason? Not just will they get in. They're going to win the North. But how many games can they win once they are in? And I know some Detroit fans may push back against this because you can't handle the success. You're not used to it. Maybe you're just crossing your fingers and just praying you get there. You're going to get there, barring an injury. Truly. So we have the Lions there, and then after the Lions, we have the Bills, and then we have the Jaguars at 7. Now, I'm not going to do the low-hanging fruit. How do you have the Jaguars here behind the Bills? They beat the Bills, whatever.
I know.
I'm going to push back, Eric, against the idea that Jacksonville is really this good. I don't think that they are. I mean, they lost at home to the Houston Texans, and it really wasn't that close. This is a big win. You beat the Bills, but you had the decided advantage in rest and acclimatization there in London. You really think they're the 7th best team in football?
At this moment, look, I mean, it's tough when you start sort of saying, look, who are the Dallas Cowboys, right? They're a team that obviously we had high favor on, or high regard for, I should say, last week. And, Baltimore Ravens could have moved up with a win. They failed to do so. So there were a lot of other teams in that same region that failed. Does this feel a little bit lofty for Jacksonville considering where they were a couple weeks ago? Absolutely. But we did see that offense start to blossom a little bit. They're going to get healthier and more cohesive on that offensive line, I think. I agree. The Bills traveling on Friday, probably, still yawning mid-first quarter during that game. That played a factor. They came out flat. The Jaguars were acclimated. So, I tried to factor all these things in, and I kept saying to myself, if you just kind of look at the trend of where they've been and where they are right now, 2 back-to-back games, even if they did happen in London, they happened. They played well. Let's cut down on the sacks and fumbles, Trevor, but still, I think this offense is ready to take off a little bit.
And Calvin Ridley took off, had his first big game since week 1. Travis Etienne took off as well with those 2 touchdowns. and they were able to close. Buffalo hung around, made their push there in the second half, but they were able to close, forcing the fumble there at the end with Trayvon Walker getting the recovery. Now, Eric, let's ask the question that you asked just 90 seconds ago, because I would love to know the answer. Who are the Dallas Cowboys?
Man, I wish I could give you that answer right now or fill it out in 125 words on my power ranking story. It's a mystery right now because Dak Prescott seemingly has taken a step back. Tony Pollard, who was supposed to be the guy in the wake of Zeke leaving, had the big fumble early in the game. Offensive line, not the unit we expected it to be. And oh, by the way, this defense that was so tremendous at times early in the season had the one slip up in Arizona. But I think we expected a better four-quarter performance from them, even as good as the 49ers are. Granted, when they have their four horsemen out there, they are tough to beat. But Dallas seemed to kind of bring the toughness to the game, but they couldn't back it up. It felt like they lost their composure a little bit when they realized the 49ers were just better than them. They were beating them on the line of scrimmage. They were more physical. And so this leaves me with this question of, hey, heading into this big game against the Chargers, who had a week of rest, with a loss, and we now have questions on special teams. Turpin is hurt. Offense, certainly all the reasons we just mentioned. And then defense, too, a unit that, frankly, I didn't think we'd be poking a ton of holes in, but now injuries and ineffectiveness have kind of open the door for that criticism.
Yeah, imagine this conversation next week if the Cowboys fall to 3-3 and lose. They play Monday night, as you mentioned, here in L.A. SoFi's right there, by the way. You can't see it, but it's over my shoulder. If they lose to the Chargers in the Kellen Moore Bowl on Monday night, imagine, because Jerry Jones went on the radio Tuesday morning. He always does the local radio thing there in Dallas. And he said what you would expect. He still believes in Dak Prescott. Said all the right things. But he was actually asked, would you push for Brian Schottenheimer to take over as play caller and take that away from Mike McCarthy? Really? Like, it's week 6, and we have already entered the why isn't Schotty calling plays part of the bingo card here for the Cowboys that we inevitably knew we would eventually get to, but it's week 6. And now, if Kellen Moore marches Justin Herbert down the field, Eric, this conversation will be fun next week.
It will. I'm sure Kellen watched what Kyle Shanahan dialed up. They have different systems, but I'm sure he's going to borrow a page or two from what he saw Sunday night.
Yeah, remember the old, McCarthy's back? The Cowboys said it to me when I was there in training camp for ITC for NFL Network. Yeah. They said, we're taking shots downfield, man. We got speed. We're taking shots downfield. I think Dak is 23rd on yards per attempt right now, something like that. So that ain't what we got. All right, where are the Ravens now after they dropped one in Pittsburgh? They're going to drop. How far? We will tell you coming up on the NFL Power Ranking Show presented by Energizer. All right, you've seen the top 8 of the NFL Power Rankings presented by Energizer. Let's continue the countdown with the Seattle Seahawks. They were on a bye. They don't go anywhere. The Ravens dropped 2 after dropping everything in Pittsburgh. They're now at number 10. Tampa, Cleveland on a bye. Chargers on a bye. Saints, Bengals, and the Atlanta Falcons. Want to hit you on the Ravens here, Eric at home, who, by the way, puts together this list. Check it all out, of course, on NFL.com. The Ravens could have and should have beaten the Steelers 7 different times. Rashad Bateman drops a touchdown. Mark Andrews a touchdown through his hands as well. Nelson Aguilar drops a touchdown. T.J. Watt punches Zay Flowers in the neck and doesn't get flagged. My point is, they had that game. They should have won that game. You still think they're a top 10 team?
Yeah, I mean, look, I again, it kind of goes back to the conversation we had earlier about, who are the middle-class teams that you think have the chance to move into that top quartile, that top 8? There just aren't many this year, Andrew. I just feel like it's a very top-heavy and bottom-heavy league this year, and the middle class is kind of all awash. So with Lamar Jackson and an evolving offense, I guess the best way kindly to describe what they're doing right now, I would say yes, by the end of the season or by a certain point, they could be better. The fact that they've given away 2 games now, the Colts game and then Sunday at Pittsburgh, in such improbable fashion, right? The first one was a little bit fluky, and it did come to a backup quarterback. But I think this one hurts more because it's a divisional game. And like you said, all the drop passes, all the opportunities, the block punt, Lamar's 2 turnovers in the fourth quarter, everything just fell apart. This is a game they should have won. Look, I don't have a whole lot to stand on here except the hope of John Harbaugh hopefully improve special teams from that team. They're usually very good. And then Jackson hitting his peak. But it's been a little bit hot and cold from them so far.
Yeah, we'll get to the Steelers in a second. Obviously, credit to them and credit to Kenny Pickett for once again finding a way in the fourth quarter when for 3 previous quarters the offense doesn't do much. But in the end, he finds George Pickens, who beats Marlon Humphrey, your best corner, really one of your only healthy defensive backs with Kyle Hamilton, and you win the game. So good for you. By the time you see this show or listen to this podcast, the Ravens will likely be at 38,000 feet on their way to London because they are live on NFL Network coming up on Sunday. It's the Ravens and the Titans. NFL Network, NFL Plus, Rich Eisen, Kurt Warner, Jamie Erdahl on the call. And remember, 9:30 Eastern Time, 7 o'clock NFL Game Day kickoff. You can stream it on NFL Plus, or if you have one of these like regular TVs, just watch it on NFL Network. Cool? Okay, cool. Let's get to the Saints because you moved them up 4, Eric. They're 14 behind the Chargers and the Browns and the Bucs, who were all on byes. 14 means you think they're a playoff team. That's a pretty big jump for beating one of, if not the worst teams in football in the Patriots. Granted, they did it resoundingly, right? Game was never in doubt. But you're moving them up for beating the Patriots.
Used to mean something, right? Especially after they were coming off a loss. Does not anymore. But it means something for the Saints who, are coming off the disappointing game against Tampa at home. I think the defense had turned in its worst effort of the year. It wasn't bad, but really the emphasis was on, can this offense go out and score points? At least we could say for a while that New England had a pretty stout defense. I mean, look, they did as good a job as you could ever imagine against Miami, given their personnel. Still held some teams down prior to the Dallas game. So they went in there and had a very efficient day. We saw Michael Thomas step up. We saw Rashid Shaheed have a little bit bigger role. They were a little bit more aggressive until they built that 24-0 lead. And Bill Belichick said, all right, I'm in your territory. I've got 4th and short. I'm going to punt it. That was when the Saints said, okay, we can be conservative too. Yeah. So I didn't mind them putting it on ice at the end there. And, we'll see. Derek Carr looking better too after a week when we weren't sure he was going to play against Tampa. So these are all good developments, I think.
And the Patriots are a shell of their former selves without Matthew Judon and Christian Gonzalez. Make the case their best 2 defensive players, even though one is only a rookie and has only played a month in this league. But with those guys out long term, I don't know where New England goes. They're kind of stuck in no man's land where they're not going to be bad enough to get Drake May or Caleb Williams, certainly, but you're not going to be good enough to be able to dig yourself out of this without some masterful moves in the offseason. We're already talking offseason here 2 weeks, 3 weeks before Halloween. Anyway, for the Patriots. Wow. All right, time for Future Champions presented by FanDuel. Let's get to the Cincinnati Bengals, Eric. Believe it or not, they have the longest odds to win the AFC North right now. Ravens still in the driver's seat. The P.J. Walker Cleveland Browns sitting there at number 2 if Deshaun Watson cannot go, and then the Steelers at number 3. But after Joe Burrow answered yes, like a definitive yes, when asked this past week, is this a must-win game, he went out there and threw 3 touchdowns, and you have the Bengals now from 20 up to 15. I don't care that they won, although it's significant. The most important development here is that he moved around and looked normal.
Yeah. You could see it on the first drive, right? I wasn't 100% sure that the cap was magically healed, but by that touchdown pass that ended the first drive and kind of set the tone for the game, you get Jamar Chase. He had a huge game. You get him involved. I felt pretty good about it. I felt great about it. By the end of the third quarter, right? I mean, he's now had the ball 50 times or whatever, and he takes off for a 10-yard scramble. That's an important part of his game, being able to get out of pressure, which is always swarming around him, right? He can be that a sneaky, effective runner. And so being able to pick up a first down late in the game like that told me he was back. So, yes, big strides on offense. However, Andrew, I'm still worried about this defense. 15 might be too high. if the defense continues to play the way it did. Yeah, Taylor-Britt had the pick six. They did have 3 turnovers total. They got to the quarterback, but I don't like the run fits. I don't like the tackling. It's been very sloppy. They gave up too many explosive plays in that game. But, right now, I still feel like there's a chance that they make a run. It's not going to look like last year maybe, but it is still going to be a team that you have to fear on a weekly basis. And good one against Seattle next week will tell us where they really are, I think, in the big picture.
Yeah, that's a tough one with Seattle well-rested, coming off a bye. That
Yeah.
game is in Cincinnati. But again, the biggest headline here, as you said, Joe Burrow looked okay. He moved around. He had a little swagger. He had that little hop step. He looked good. And Jamar Chase had 15 and then tweeted afterwards a picture of a 7-Eleven. He is always open.
Always open.
Coming up, the bottom half of the power rankings. Eric doesn't say your season is over. He just wants to see more. If you haven't heard your team's name yet, please stick around on the NFL Power Ranking Show presented by Energizer. It's the NFL Power Ranking Show here presented by Energizer. The Indianapolis Colts are moving up 9. Green Bay drops 4 after losing Monday night in Vegas. We got the Jets going nowhere, the Steelers going up, Texans, Rams, Titans, and the Vikings round out 17 through 24. Time for some power moves presented by Energizer. Zach Moss is third of the NFL in rushing. When's he getting paid? Up 9, even with, Eric, the prospect here of a long-term Gardner Minshew appearance, including this week in Jacksonville.
Yeah, well, the Indiana National Guard was threatening to invade Illinois if I didn't move them up. I hear you, Colts fans. Your team is pretty good this year, right? So I finally gave them the respect that they probably deserved a little bit early. So a little bit of a sort of bookkeeping move here, but still, look, they went out and out-tightened the Titans last week, right? They won the battle up front, the line of scrimmage. That's what Mike Vrabel tries to win games with. The Colts flipped the script on him. I think Shane Steichen's done a really good job, and he's going to have to, as you mentioned, Anthony Richardson's injury, out probably a month or more. But look, he said Gardner Minshew is, in his mind, one of the best backups in the league, if not the best backup, and he helped deliver a big win in Indy. He's come in relief in a number of games here, taking place of Richardson when he's got hurt. The defense comes up with timely plays, and Moss is filled in beautifully for Taylor. So now you got the two of them together. That could help offset the loss of the quarterback. And yeah, it's going to be fun to see where this team goes after such a disastrous 2022 season.
It is the Gardner Minshew revenge game this week
Love
as
it.
the Colts head to Jacksonville. Let's jump to the Steelers. They're up 3. They are number 20. They are in first in the best division for my money, the NFL, the NFC, the AFC North, I beg your pardon. Sorry, NFC East. You have the first place team of the AFC North at 20, Eric.
Yeah, it's you can't tell the story of the Steelers without mentioning, look, they're minus 32 in point differential, right? They've had the bad loss at Houston. They've had plenty of slip-ups. The 49ers certainly took care of business, but they've won games that I didn't think they were capable of winning. You got to credit Mike Tomlin. You got to credit Kenny Pickett. Look, he wasn't even sure to play last week, and as badly as he struggled for most of the game, he found George Pickens time and time again. They got finally Jalen Warren involved, and he had a couple of great plays at the end of that game, and then the big block punt I thought kind of turned the tide a little. So timely plays when you have to have them. That defense was unsung as well.
Yep, offense not good. Defense still very good, and the Steelers are up 3 to number 20. Now the rest. Not the best of the rest, but just the rest. The Raiders, the Commanders, disappointing. The Cardinals, the Broncos, the Patriots, the Bears, the Giants, and the Panthers. Why aren't the Patriots at 32, Eric?
Look, Bill Belichick's one of the great coaches of all time. What we've seen in the last 2 weeks is unlike anything we've really seen from him in his career. I would be shocked if he went out just punting on 4th and short down 24-0 every week. Is it bad? Yes. Are they sticking with Mac? Yeah, which makes me worry a little bit. But I don't know what other choice they have. They may have long-term plans that involve a draft quarterback next spring, but right now that's not going to fix them. And Andrew, I don't know if there are solutions on this roster with all the injured players you mentioned earlier in the show.
And this week they go to Vegas for the Belichick and Josh McDaniels Bowl. McDaniels asked about it Tuesday, and he said, quote, "That horse is dead." He said, in other words, we've beaten that horse to death. Don't ask me about that topic anymore.
Yep.
Interesting way to say it. For Eric Edholm, I'm Andrew Siciliano. Those are your power rankings heading into Week 6. Enjoy Week 6, everyone. Download us as a podcast as well. So long, everybody.